My 5-year-old asked me why Santa didn't come last year, and I had to admit it was because I'd been in jail on Christmas Eve. The whole thing started 6 months earlier when my ex-wife Emma decided she wanted to move our daughter Ruby to another state with her new boyfriend. Not asking me, not discussing it, just informing me during our custody exchange that they'd be gone by Thanksgiving. She handed me some court papers and said I could fight it if I wanted, but her lawyer was expensive and I'd probably lose anyway. I couldn't afford a good lawyer, so I represented myself in family court. Emma showed up with this guy in a $1,000 suit while I sat there in my best shirt from Target, frantically taking notes on a legal pad. The judge barely looked at me when I tried to explain that Ruby was my whole world, that we had pancake sundaes and bedtime stories every night she stayed with me. Emma's lawyer painted me as unstable because I worked nights at a warehouse and lived in a small apartment. They made it sound like Ruby was basically living in poverty with me, even though I'd spent my last paycheck on a princess bed for her room. The judge granted the move. Ruby would be gone by December 1st. For 2 weeks after that ruling, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Christmas morning without her, about all the birthdays I'd miss, about how she'd forget me eventually. Emma wasn't even letting me have phone calls, saying Ruby needed to adjust to her new life without distractions. That's when I made the stupidest decision of my life. On December 23rd, during my scheduled pickup, I just didn't bring Ruby back. I know how it sounds, but I wasn't thinking straight. I took her to my apartment and we made cookies and watched Christmas movies. She kept asking when we were going home to Mommy, and I kept saying we'd figure it out tomorrow. Around midnight, the cops showed up. Emma had called them hours earlier, but they'd been dealing with other emergencies. Ruby was asleep on my couch when they knocked. I opened the door and saw 3 officers standing there with serious faces. "Sir, we need you to step outside." The next thing I knew, I was in handcuffs in the back of a police car while a female officer carried a confused, crying Ruby to Emma's car. Emma wouldn't even look at me. Ruby kept screaming, "Daddy!" over and over until their car disappeared around the corner. I spent Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in a holding cell with a guy who'd been arrested for public urination and another one who wouldn't stop talking about his conspiracy theories. The food was terrible, the lights never turned off, and all I could think about was Ruby waking up Christmas morning wondering where I was. When I finally got out 3 days later, I had a restraining order and supervised visitation only. Emma had already left for Arizona with Ruby. My court-appointed lawyer told me I'd basically destroyed any chance of getting decent custody back anytime soon. For the next year, I saw Ruby exactly 6 times through video calls that were monitored by a social worker. She looked different each time, taller, older, more distant. Emma would hover in the background making sure Ruby didn't say too much. But here's the crazy part. Last month, Emma called me out of nowhere. Turns out her new boyfriend was a complete loser who quit his job and spent all day playing video games. She was working 2 jobs trying to pay rent on their expensive apartment, and Ruby was acting out at school, getting into fights and refusing to do homework. "She keeps asking about you," Emma admitted quietly. "She wants to come home." So now Ruby's back, living with me full-time while Emma figures out her life in Arizona.